All right, hey guys. Today I wanted to talk about user notifications and the user notification framework in iOS that Apple provides. They very similar to push notifications. They're basically notifications that happen when we're not using our applications that allow us to take action in or back into our application. So they can be set in time intervals. They can be set based on, let's say you have a server that is updating content. If certain content comes out, you can push out a notification through a push notification. This is a user notification. So this is not done via server side. This is done more via an app. So I'm gonna show you guys exactly what they are. You can see they kind of look reminiscent of UI alert view controllers in your app, but they are outside of your app. So we're gonna walk through that. Here is a screenshot of what a basic user notification might look like. It's something that generally drops down when you're in another application telling you about another application. And none of these pictures have it, but basically they allow you to take action upon them. You can click into it, or you can actually have buttons below. I'm not sure these images don't have it, but they do. So I want to show you kind of what we're going to do today. I already started pre-building an application just to save us some time. You can see actually, and I have it running in a simulator here. So far, it's nothing fancy. It is literally a button that's on a view controller with nothing else in it, that if I press it, nothing happens. We're going to press it, and when we do press it, once we implement the code, we'll pop back out into the background. We'll put the app in the background. We'll go into maybe another app, and we'll see a notification appear. So the best way that I've found to use user notifications is through a notification manager object and instance. You'll see some developers, they just drop in notifications anywhere, which to me is makes your code dirty and makes it harder to debug and harder for others to reuse. So we're going to make a class, rather actually a structure in this case, that is going to be extremely reusable, where people can schedule notifications from and create and use however they want. So let's create a new Swift file, and we'll call this a notification manager. And we will make this a structure called notification manager, like so. And the framework we need to use for user notifications is user notifications. There is a user notifications UI, which is for creating your own kind of UI customized, but we're not going to do that. And I wanted to show you kind of how notifications work. And this is kind of how they work, essentially. You've got the first thing you want to do is request access. Very similar to like core location or map kit or using contacts or using photos in iOS. We have to ask the permission of the user. So we're going to first create a reusable function inside of our structure that lets us request access. And then we're going to create a reusable object that we can assemble, and then we'll pass that object into our schedule notification, and then we'll schedule the notification. And I'll show you guys how to do that in a second. And what is this object we need to create? Some might be asking. It's called, let's get that web page up, UN notification content. And this is actually, if you look at this class, it's actually an object that we need to create. Now, it's not a subclassable class that I've been able to figure out how to subclass yet. And it might be an error that I'm having on my end, but what I actually ended up doing, which is really cool for this user, this notification manager, is to create our own initialized object out of it so that it can be reused. I'm going to show you how to do that in a second as well. So in this user notification content object, there's things like the title, which will be the title of our notification, very similar to this. This bold area, restaurant recommendation. There is a subtitle. There's a body, which is this body text. There's an attachment, which is here, which we can attach, which would be like the photo. And there's something very important, which is the category identifier. So notifications in iOS work with categories. So you have to, it's going to be kind of complicated to explain, but basically you have to, and I'll show you, we'll walk through this in the code. You have to register notifications with the system first when we start. And that really should be another step in our sequence here. But essentially we have to associate each of the object or notification objects, these guys, with category identifiers. And they basically identify to the app, okay, we're going to send out this notification and it's associated with this category and it's associated with these objects. And so we'll do that here right now. So let's first start with requesting access. So let's create a static function, which just means that it's basically the same as a class function where we don't need to initialize the object to actually use the function, but static means it can't be overridden or subclassed. So let's just call this request notification access. And we might drop something in here a little bit later, but for right now, we will use, I believe it's UN user notification center dot current, and there's a function on here that's called request authorization access. Now we can pass in UN authorization options here, but we're going to leave it nil for now, and if you want, you can explore what those are. And we're going to get back something called, we'll call this authorized, and an error from our completion closure. And we'll check the inverse of authorized, and we'll take action. So for right now, we'll just print unable to authorize notifications in this app for now, okay? And maybe we'll do something with this a little bit later, but this will be the first step for requesting our access. Okay, so the next thing is going to this, we need to create a content object. And remember, like I said, we can't subclass that content. So the easiest way that I've actually found to do it is to create, we'll create a public structure here inside of our notification manager class. And we'll call this notification content object. And we'll actually, because it's not subclassed, we'll say, we'll create a variable which is our notification object context. So we'll call this notification object content, sorry, not context. And we'll set it of type UN mutable notification content. And we'll make it optional. And then we're going to create a initializer. And it really should be a failable initializer, but for the all intents and purposes of this, we will put in a title, a message body, which will be a string, and a category identifier. Identifier, which will be a string as well. Okay. And what we'll do is we'll start by creating or instantiating our notification object context. And we'll set this equal to a UN mutable context like this so that we actually have a handle on it. And then we'll basically tie in, remember what I was talking about, there was all these properties that I showed you. There's a mutable content and there's a non-mutable content. We're gonna use the mutable content for this example just because these are, we can't set these are get onlys. Versus these we can, set, get, change to our intents desire. So there is a title property and we'll set this equal to the title that we pass in. And then we'll say notification context.body. And we'll set this equal to the message body that we're going to use. And then we're going to set notification content identifier, category identifier, which is very important, to our category identifier. Okay, just like that. And let's create a static function that we can, well, it doesn't need to be static actually. We'll just create a function that's get our content object from this. Now, if you remember, like I said, we're not subclassing in our structure the UN mutable notification content. We are basically just creating our own object. So if we want to return this to a UN mutable content object, we need to first make sure that we have an object that we're going to return. So let's just say content object like this. Is it equal to our notification content object that we've instantiated and created up here and in our initializer? Else, we'll just return for now, okay? If so, we'll just return our content object like so. Okay, and we want to make this optional because this is going to complain for a second because the above up here is optional. And then if so, we'll return nil. And maybe in here before this, just so we can have good handling, we would want to create basically an error, or throw an error maybe here and mark the function as try, or throw, pardon me. But for this, we'll just say unable to return an object. Okay, like so. Okay. So what's great about this now is now when we go to do our schedule notification, we can create our content object first and then pass it into our schedule notification. So let's do that now. Excuse me. So let's create a static function here, and we'll call this schedule notification. Okay. And we'll schedule it with a notification, which will be of our type notification content object class or structure, pardon me, that we just created. And we'll do it with something called a time interval. So how often do we want to do it? And that's just going to be of type time interval. And do we want it to be repeating? And this will just be a Boolean. Okay, looking good. And the first thing we need to define is something called a notification trigger. And I'll show you exactly what this is. Let's just write this out. Notification trigger equals UN, time notification trigger. And there's actually an initializer on this, which is kind of nice. And we'll pass in our with time interval that we've going to pass into this initializer, or sorry, this function, and our repeating Boolean that we're going to pass into the function. Now, what is this? Well, basically, what this actually is, this notification trigger, is it's basically a trigger that we can set an initializer on it that basically says, okay, do we want it to happen in some sort of timed increment? So we can put in here 1 year, we can put in 5 seconds, we can put in, however long we want. And we just created this time interval above so we could easily pass it in to make this this code really reusable. Okay, so next thing we want to do is we want to guard let our content object. Okay, we need to get a hold of a content object equal to our with notification, right? The one that we're going to pass in, which is of our notification content object. And we actually want to, right now, if we basically just did this and then we said let write else and return, the issue with this statement would be that we're not assigning this content object the actual immutable notification content object. We would be assigning it our notification content. So we need to actually use this function that we wrote, get content object from here. And that will ensure that we are returned this mutable notification content, because when we pop that into our request method that we're going to use in a few minutes, it actually is going to need that. And so let's create that request right now. So we'll say let request equal UN notification requests right here, like so. And there is, you'll see really nicely, a completion on this. And so what we can do is we need to pass it an identifier. Okay, well, that's not too hard, right? I know I have a with notification object that I've created, and I know that that on that object there is a category identifier, but it is not accessible. And the reason that is you will remember that if I did with notification, it is the notification content object, not the UN mutable notification content. So we want this UN notification content because on this there is a category identifier, which we actually want to be able to use. So we'll pass it this content object, content objects here. And then we can pass it the category identifier that is assigned to that. Okay, And then next, it's actually going to want our content, which is just of our UN notification content. So we can just say content object for this one. And then it wants a trigger. Okay, well, we already defined that is going to be our notification trigger, just like that. Very nice, right? Very, very nice. Okay, the next thing that we want to do when we actually send, before we actually pop this request into our request queue, is we want to actually remove any pending notifications, just because this will cause an issue if you do not. So let's create a function that we can do that with. So we'll create a static file private function that we can only do from here, and we'll just call it remove pending notifications, like that. And what we'll do is we'll get a hold of our class UN user notification center. Oops, center dot current dot remove all pending notifications. And why am I doing it instead of using this object? Well, I think it just looks cleaner to do it like this and to use my own custom implementations of that, so that, for example, I'm not duplicating code. So if I went out to go create more scheduled notification functions or very specific types, instead of writing this UN user notification center dot current dot remove all notifications several times, if I needed to use it, I can just use this one single time and not have to rewrite this constant line so many times. I like to practice the dry principle, which is don't repeat yourself, which you might have heard. But that's just kind of how I like to do it. It saves me time down the road, and it helps out other developers. So the next thing we want to actually do in our scheduled notification, which is the last thing, is we got to add the request to the notification request queue. And that's going to be accomplished through adding it in. And very similarly, as we did before, we're going to create a static function in case I need to do this in multiple places. And we'll make it file private, which we'll just call add notification request, we'll say, just so it's a little bit more clear. And we'll pass in a request here, and it will be of UN notification request type. And what we'll do is we'll get a hold of that same, not user defaults, UN user notification center. It's a tongue twister to say, and we'll say add request, and then we'll pass in the request that we're going to add from whatever's passed in. And we will actually get back an error here if for some reason we have some trouble with that, adding it into the request. So we'll just we'll print out the localized description of the error for now. Localized description like so. Okay, and then we'll drop that here. We'll say add notification into queue like this. So we'll say add notification, and we'll drop in our request that we built just right above right here. Just like that. Okay, that looks pretty good for our notification manager class, right? Now, oh, I'm sorry. We actually are forgetting one thing, and that is our notification categories and actions that we need to add in here. And what are they? Well, as I talked about before, when we process or pass in a notification request and we build out this object, we need to pass in a category identifier. So we're not going to be able to create this object without our category identifier, and we can't just pass in a random string. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So what we want to actually do is let's come down here right before these static functions, and let's create a structure inside of here that we can actually store our notification categories. Notification categories like this. And what we can actually do is we can just make it a static, right? And we can define as many as we want in this, and then just pass them directly in through our notification categories instance into any time we're creating that UN, or sorry, that notification content object. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. Let's just define a general notification category. It's kind of long. And we'll just make this, I believe this can actually just be a string. Like this. Actually, no, I'm sorry. It needs to be a UN category, user notification category. And I believe there's actually an initializer on this, maybe? Like this, and yes, there is an initializer, awesome. So it's asking for the identifier. Okay, so what is our identifier in this case? Well, our identifier is just gonna be, we'll just call this general notification. And these are actually, if this is confusing to you, basically all that this is this is a way of categorizing or assigning actions to certain events for notification. So like the best example I really have is like, let's say you're on Twitter or you're on Facebook and you get a user notification. Well, Twitter or Facebook might have a user notification class or category structure like we're doing right here, which is called, anything that has to do with user notifications, I want to always pass in these two actions. One is to open back the app and reply to the tweet or to reply to the Facebook message. And the other might be to dismiss. And so that's what this really gives us the option. It allows us to bind in the actions to this category. So you might have 100 categories in your app, or you might have only one. So for our app, we're going to have just one. It's a general notification category. It's called, or the string identifier that it's going to use when we pass it into, when we complete our notification content object, general notification, and it's going to ask for these actions. Now I haven't defined them yet, but I'm going to show you how to do that. So the easiest way to do that is create another structure actually for actions. And the reason that we do these structures like this is so that they're just easily reusable. So we might call this notification actions. Notification actions like this, and we'll just make static. We'll call one dismiss action. Okay. And this has to be a UN what happened there? UN notification action. We'll just say UN notification action. And I believe there is a completion on this. Okay. And this wants an identifier as well. So we'll just call this the default action title. This is the title that's going to show up in the actual notification. Think of UI alert view controller. This is going to be actually the title of the button. So this is actually the title of the button in this case. We're going to pass in no options for this. So you might have several ones here. We'll have one called OK action. And we'll have this of type user notification action, UN notification action, right? And this one we'll just call OK action. And it can be honestly sort of frustrating with these identifiers, but honestly, they are, when you're using a larger scale app, like an enterprise app, and you have like 50 of these, and you need to be able to easily bind them to, like I said, these categories. So see how here in this general notification category, we're going to actually drop in these actions into an array. So let's put in our the ones that we've actually created down here in this structure. So how do we do that? Well, because it's a structure and it's a first class citizen in Swift, we can just do notification actions dots, and I believe the order that you put them in is important, because if I put the dismiss one before, I believe it shows at the top. But somebody please correct me in the comments if I am wrong about that. Intent identifiers we're going to leave as no options and no options for that. Again, going back to it, the big example of this would be, let's say I had general notification category, I had a reply to notification category, I had, up and coming live events notification category. I can bind all these different types of actions to these categories. And it will be a little bit more, or it'll make a little bit more sense once we actually go into the notification. Okay, so we've got this. This is, really great, but how do we make this all work? Well, the first thing is, remember, we have to request access. Okay. And we have this awesome function, and we have this awesome manager class that we can pass around and use, right? Great. Well, how do we gain access? The first thing is we need to get access. If you remember this, this diagram I have here, first thing is we need to do is request access. Well, we can do that easily by just basically requesting our notification access, right, from our app delegate. And what I'm gonna actually, gonna do here really quickly, which is really cool, instead of actually saying, okay, let's request these, and then we need to pass in these notifications, because remember, we have to register our notifications with our system. I'm gonna actually create another function, and you guys are gonna hate me for this, but it's actually going to make everything a lot easier. And let me show you what that looks like right now. So we're gonna create one last function, I promise. It's going to be a static file private function that is called register notifications, right? Because we have to register our notifications with notification. This is going to be kind of long, but it really does help to have longer names with other developers when you work with a lot of developers. I work on a team with a lot of developers, so it's always just easier. Notifications that we want to use. And when we pass in the notifications, they need to come in a set. And they're going to be of a certain type, and they are going to be UN notification category type. Why is it not auto-completing? UN. Let's just do it like this. UN notification category. Boom. Boom. Set. All right. Now I can stop complaining. Right. Let's put these here. Sweet, right? Okay. So now we need to actually pass in whatever notifications we're going to pass in here that we've already created in our system. So let's call our, not user defaults, UN user notification center dot current dot, I think it's not add, it's set notifications with categories. And so this basically binds in those categories and notifications into our system so we can just sporadically call them as we want. And we're just passing these in. So they're just going to be not notification object, but notifications that we're passing in. And that's all there is to it. And remember, as I was saying, when we request access, well, if we have access, right, we would basically be outside of this if statement right here. So what we can do is we can add our system, or not systems, apps notifications here like this. And we can just call our add notifications. I'm sorry, not add notification request. What do we call it? We called it, yeah, add notification request. What am I talking about? Self, we'll call, did I call it add notifications? No, register notifications. I'm going crazy today. Sorry, guys. Self.register notifications with the notification center, this super crazy long method, which I don't know why we'd ever need. And remember how I said we were going to do something with this? Well, let's pass in when we register the notifications, when we request our access for the first time. Well, if we actually get access, let's just load in these notifications that we're going to create system-wide. So we can say with notifications here, and this will be our set, right, of our, what is it, of type UN, notification categories. And I don't know why autocomplete doesn't work instead of a set. That might be a bug. Most likely is. There's been a lot of bugs in Xcode lately. Like that. Okay. And we'll pass this right here, like that. Looking pretty good. So let's go back into our app delegate, and we need to request authorization for user notifications in app. Well, we can call our notification center, our notification manager, pardon me, and we can run one of our options. We can run our request notification access. Oh, it's not auto-completing. Let's build real quick and see why we can't get that object. There we go. Request notifications or notification access with our notifications. Okay. Well, what notifications are we going to pass in here, right? Well, we've already created these. So what we can actually pass in here is notification manager, notification categories, right? And our general notification category, that one that we have. Okay, like so. And we'll build this to make sure we are building okay, which we are not. Can I convert value of notification category? I know why. I know why. Let's create an object which is called notification categories. And I'll just make this very clear for you guys. This is going to basically be a set of UN. I don't know why I keep doing it like this. UN notification. Oh, you know what? Maybe we haven't imported. Import user notifications. Let's see if that compiler goes away. No. Okay, yes. This is because we need to create notification categories like this. UN notification category. And let's make this a set equal to this. We don't have to type this, actually. We can just use this. General notification, like this, like that. And we'll pass in our notification categories here. Build, and we should be good. Yes, okay. Strange that it makes you do that. It must be something with the access to that file modifier. Okay, great. So when we load up our app, because we have this in our app delegate, and when we finish launching, we should get prompted with an option to request or deny authorization for user notifications in our app. Let's close that. Boom, there it is. Notifier, which is the name of my app, would like to send you notifications. Allow or don't allow? Let's don't allow for fun. Okay, that's great. But how do I actually schedule a notification, right? How do I schedule a notification if something in my app happens? So for example, in this button, right, which is tied to this selector for this button that I created, we're going to actually create this this here. So the first thing we need to do is create the notification object. Create the notification objects, right? And this is going to be very handy because we can just say let notification equal notification manager dot notification content object, and we have this awesome initializer that we created from our structure of a notification content object. We'll say this is a notification message body. You are being notified from this really awesome notification, right? Period. And category identifier. Remember I told you we would need this. This is important, guys. We can grab a hold of our notification manager. We can go into our notification categories, and we can use our general notification category. Very, very easy, right? Now, we can schedule our notification. So we can say notification manager, schedule notification, right? And our notification that we're creating up above. And with some interval, let's put 10 seconds for now. And we'll say we don't want to repeat. And that's really all there is to it. But we are complaining. check this out. This general notification category, what is it? We don't know, right? Well, we don't know that because remember that the notification manager notification category takes me into here, right? Great. And then I have this, which is of a notification category. Well, I need to use this identifier because otherwise I'm just using this object and that's not going to work because it wants an identifier. And Swift is type safe. So we'll say dot identifier. Bam. Build. Build failed. Why did we fail? Oh, this needs to be a notification. Not the class. And let's run. And I wonder how long this video is actually getting at this point. So we get presented with notifier would like to send you push notifications. We'll allow. We're going to say notify me. And I'm going to put the app into the background. And in about 10 seconds or less, because now it's less, we should hopefully see some sort of notification. Boom! Look at that. That's pretty cool. And if I pull it down, I get even more information. This is a notification. You're being notified from this really awesome notification. And I can take action with these two actions here. I'll say okay, dismisses, boom, that's it. All right, I really hope that this helps understand how to use notifications, user notifications in iOS. Again, to me, this is an extremely reusable case where we use a notification manager. This is how I would do it in an enterprise world application, not in like my own applications. But to me, this is an extremely reusable piece of code because we've converted a highly abstract class. We've taken it and simplified it into a notification manager object that we are basically using, passing around, and sending notifications into a queue. So I hope that works. If you guys have any questions, you want to access the code, please let me know. And if that's it, yeah, have a great day.